Are you guys ready to go on a little side quest with me? Because this is going to take a hot minute or two, or three, maybe 45 minutes. I don't know how long I'm going to go today, but we are going to talk. I'm going to rant in a good way about Avowed. And should you play the first two games? Should you play the first two Pillars of Eternity games before Avowed comes out? If you have time. Because that's the caveat here. Do you have the spare time to sink your teeth into games that are going to take hundreds of hours of your soul? They're great games. You totally should. Are they required? No. I just finished watching the Dropped Frames episode where they had Carrie Patel on, the game director for Avowed, and she had some very good answers. And I think one of the cool things was the understanding that you don't have to have played the first two games to be able to quickly jump into the world of Eora when you jump into Avowed, but that there will essentially be so much more there for you if you've played the first two games, because you'll already understand a lot of the nuances of the story, things like the political factions, the things with the gods and the souls and the religions and everything else. But before I get into any of that stuff, I just need to say first and foremost, this will be a spoiler-heavy episode. The games have been out for a while now, but there are still people who I've come across who haven't played them. So you've been warned. If you don't want if you don't want the story spoiled, I can't help you, because we're going to be talking story from this point onwards, because there's a lot of stuff to dig into about why I think you should play the first two games. If you don't care about story and you're just wanting to jump into this because the combat sounds really cool and everything else, then just wait. Otherwise, let's dive in. So, I've played the first two games through multiple times. The first game I've played through twice on the PC, and then played it a third time on the Xbox. I backed the Kickstarter for Pillars of Eternity 1 however many years ago that was now. And it was one of the first Kickstarters that I was like, I'm gonna do this. And they were at the time, I think Pillars of Eternity was at the time one of the biggest, if not the biggest, RPG that had been funded through Kickstarter, and it was proof of what the Unity engine was capable of for a talented team when it comes to single-player RPGs. The first game is absolutely phenomenal. It is a six-person party CRPG, so if you like the original Baldur's Gate games, the original Icewind Dale games, where you had six people in your party, top-down isometric CRPG, this is it. This is like the modern version of all of that, and exceptionally well done. On top of just the fact that it was mechanically a really good CRPG, this showcased Obsidian Entertainment's and Josh Sawyer's brilliance in my mind as a game director, creative director, and storyteller. We got this incredibly original world that was high fantasy in its base nature. So we could see the similarities. We had a high fantastical world with magic, and we had the traditional races that we were familiar with: elves and humans and dwarves, halflings, and the traditional race classes that we were familiar with. You know, ranger, fighter, thief, mage, so on and so forth. But they also had their own unique races and their own unique classes. And on top of that, you had this familiar high fantasy world that was incredibly unique with the storytelling. So, at the core of all of this is your traditional high fantasy magic and everything else. But on top of this, they have this nuanced political system that's going on with these different factions. But then my favorite part of this is the unfocused camera. Um, the gods and souls. So, without diving too deep into the story here, and because that would take probably multiple videos. The basic general idea is that gods aren't gods just because they are gods, because they were made gods. And how were they made gods? Well, that's a complex thing. It has to deal with worship and souls and all this other stuff. And the first game is essentially about this pandemic that's going on where these children are being born without souls. And you stumble into the midst of this, and you find out that you have a connection to this person who is part of this culture called the Anguithians, who lived a long, long time ago, and they figured out how to build these machines, these towers that were soul devices. And one of their leaders has managed to stay alive for thousands of years through the use of these trapped souls and everything else. And it's just an incredibly um, incredibly complex story. And the first time I played through the game, I got to the end, the first game, I got to the end and I was like, oh my God, what did I just play through? I didn't understand half of what was going on. And I immediately turned around and did another playthrough and got to the end of the second playthrough and was like, okay, that was a lot. I need time to decompress. I don't know what's up with that camera today. It's my hands, man. Need time to decompress and waited, and then came back and played it a third time, beginning of last year, I think, on the Xbox because it's part of Games Pass. Game Pass. So I was like, you know what? I'll try the console version. Played it through again. That's all on my channel. You can check that out. That particular playthrough is there, and had a great time. I got to the end of the third playthrough and was like, I finally understand all the nuances now. Like it was the layered, storytelling from the first two attempts that I went through and did. Not attempts, but the first two playthroughs. I was able to understand it all by the end of the third one and felt very fulfilled. And then we get into the second game, Deadfire, which in my mind was a better game in every way, shape, or form. So the first game was great, added all those amazing elements they had, skill trees, classes, abilities, really cool lore, and they had a pretty decent voice cast versus voice acting in the game. It wasn't fully voiced, but it was, pretty well voiced. Then we get to the second one, and that one, Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire, was crowdfunded through Fig, and it had a bigger budget. They were able to get the Critical Role staff to come on and do voiceovers and narration and all sorts of other fun stuff, and it went from partially voiced to fully voiced. The second game is absolutely freaking amazing and is up there in like my probably top 3 CRPGs of all time. It's up there. Like it is an amazing game. Maybe top 5. I would have to analyze my top 5 again because that's shifted a little bit since Baldur's Gate 3 came out of nowhere and took me by surprise. Because Baldur's Gate 2 was at the top for a very long time, and Avowed was in there. Not Avowed, sorry. Deadfire was in there as like number 2, number 3, depending on how I was feeling with Dragon Age Origins. But now Baldur's Gate 3 came along. I might need to expand that to a top 5 now. So it's definitely in my top 5. Anyway, fully voiced, same CRPG, bigger, better. Really cool storyline. Still more stuff dealing with this political substructure, but now you're in a different part of the world, and how does that? It's kind of like the relations that different embassies have when they're in different countries. And so when you did the second game, you took all the stuff you knew about the first game and moved it to the second game. But you're in a different place, so everybody's reactions are slightly different. By the way, one of the things I completely forgot about, because I don't have show notes and I ramble, the first game also had a really cool base structure. So you had a castle that was your base, and you were able to expand that, make it better, recruit people to come work there. And then there was a dungeon that went really down deep beneath your fortress, and that was a multi-tiered thing that you could come back to in between your adventures. And it was a really cool layer on top of the CRPG of this like kingdom management without being too tedious. Anyway, get to the second one, because the second game kind of picks up after the first one. Some time has passed. There's a very easy backstory about why you are where you are, and turns out you're on a ship now, and the ship is your home base. It's kind of like the castle you had from the first game. So that introduces ships, ship crews, ship-based combat in a pirate-themed, privateer-styled CRPG. So now you've got magic and everything else, and you still have like the pistols and rifles from the first game, which are on top of the magical elements, but now you can also do crazy things like take my thief build that I loved and have a flintlock pistol offhand and a rapier main hand rogue from my first playthrough, who becomes a sea captain on this pirateering vessel. Well, privateering, not pirateering. I was a privateer for the good guys. And there's a really cool ship-to-ship combat system. There's different ships that you can get. You can upgrade your ship with different weapons and trim and everything else. There's the crew that you can hire, which is different from your CRPG crew members. There's the traditional, really rich, deep companion system here. All the factions, all the storyline, fully voiced, as I mentioned earlier, and this really cool exploration system where you're essentially in an archipelago, if that's the pronunciation. I probably butchered that pronunciation. Anyway, and you're going all over these islands and everywhere else with your ship. So there's the ship-to-ship stuff, ship-to-ship combat, which, by the way, you can either do ship-to-ship combat or you can board the other ship and have a traditional CRPG encounter of your ship versus their ship. It shows the two ships sort of parallel on the screen, sort of a like diagonal angle, and then you're boarding and they're boarding and you're fighting, and it's your crew versus their crew. It's a really good game. Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. And the second one has a story that I feel is even better than the first game because they took the ideas and they refined it down. And it's all about the gods and souls and eternity and the future and fate of the world and etc. And if you watched the Dropped Frames podcast, which I highly recommend that you do, my reaction to it is previous to this. It just was in the video I did yesterday. But I highly recommend that you go watch the interview as well. So check it out on their website as well on the YouTube channel. Carrie Patel talked about how if you're familiar with the elements of the first two games, then you're sort of doing the same thing here in Avowed, is that in the first two games you sort of were a character who straddled the fence between the political stuff of the game and the religious magical souls aspect of the greater story. So there's these two things that are kind of running parallel, and then there's your character having a storyline that's taking place in the middle of these two constants. So the two constants we know are this is what's going on politically. This is the political hand, sorry. This is what's going on politically in the realm, and this is what's going on with gods and magic and souls. And your character has always walked a path between those with whatever the storyline of the game is. And Avowed is no different in that you have been sent to the living lands, I believe is what it's called, to deal with this thing that you are uniquely equipped to deal with because you travel in both worlds. So if you remember the Watcher story, that's sort of always been who you are. Now, I don't know if we're going to be a Watcher again in this game or if it's going to be something slightly different. They haven't actually told us yet. So we don't know exactly what the callbacks are to the first two games, but we do know that the setting is there. And so if you want to get the most out of the setting of Eora when you get in to play Avowed this fall or winter, they still haven't confirmed a date yet. They just said sometime 2024. If you have all of this knowledge at your disposal, I think it will make Avowed a much richer experience for you. For me, I'm just looking forward to playing the game. I was already excited to play it, thought I knew what I was going to play, and then I saw the dual wands and the grimoire in action, and then I went, oh my goodness, I should totally take my rogue character and be like a pistolier, wand-wielding rogue. So, pew, bam, 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 pew, bam, 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 bam. I just love the idea of being a flintlock pistol-wielding, wand-wielding thief character. But I've also looked at the grimoire and went, man, it looks good to be a spellcaster in this game where you've got the grimoire and you're just... I can see this game, especially as they tighten up the animations that they've shown us so far, and finish the polish passes to get the game gold. I have a feeling that combat in this game is going to be something that turns this into a very, very extremely watched type of stream, because people are going to come up with their own unique builds within the skill system and unique combat styles that they have and the way they take care of enemies. I cannot wait to play this game. I cannot overstate that. For me, it's already my Game of the Year contender. I haven't even played it yet. Obviously, we still have Star Wars Outlaws and other things that are going to happen this year. Indiana Jones, that looks good too. But the depth of what Obsidian brings to the table in previous titles makes me think that this is going to be, for me personally, my Game of the Year. I don't know if that's actually going to be true, but that's how I feel so far. My feelings might change later, but that's what I feel so far based on what I've heard and seen. Cannot wait to play this game. I'm going to try really hard to see if I can't squeeze a third Deadfire playthrough in sometime before this game comes out. Knowing that it's probably going to be a fall or winter release means I've got time in the summer probably to do this. I don't think we have a release date yet for Indiana Jones yet. Or did we? I forget. But that's like fall of 2024. Stalker 2 is like September. So I don't know when. We'll see. I'll get to it. If you like Avowed, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon here on my channel, because I will be talking about this more and more as we see more podcasts and vodcasts and interviews and gameplay trailers and everything else. This is absolutely going to consume my life when it comes out, so you can bet your booties that you're going to see me streaming it and creating guides around it, doing Let's Play series and everything else. But until then, we've all got to wait patiently, so hopefully I'll see you around here for more. I do stream daily between here and Twitch. I do a lot of different games. Check them all out. There's a Discord. You can also get a copy of my latest fantasy novel. Links are down there. Working out with my brother and my wife. It's fantasy, it's Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms style. We have a tabletop world, a point-and-click adventure game. Check it out. Until next time, everybody, stay safe. Happy gaming.